buckle up. I'm taking you guys right in to game 3 now. Spawning in on the east side, playing the color blue and the Delhi Sultanate. It is Vortex, his brother, sharing half of his genetic code, spawning in on the southern end, playing as the French. Lucifron 7, they are playing against the 3D clan. Anatan playing as the Rus, spawning in the western side of Dry Arabia, and on the northern side, playing as the French. It is 3DB, so you're exactly right, Baron. We've got a couple of French on either side. A little bit of a difference for both of these players, though. It looks like Lucifron going for, obviously, the sheep, as most French do, but B on the other side going for the mill and the deer and survival techniques. What do you think about that?
I think it's great, but I think it's a very strange decision to kill more than one deer when you have a roost teammate.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Anatan probably, he sees that there's 3 deer carcasses and he's minus 30 gold, and man, I can imagine in voice chat they're probably losing their mind at each other. But Anatan being a good teammate, look at the way he's kiting those deer. Just a little bit of APM could really mean all the difference, and just put a smile on your teammate's face, because some of these deer carcasses going into the mill, which has been beneficial for him too. Now, usually for French, on the 2v2 side of it, you basically just make knights. And you make a lot of them. And then you end up winning the game. On the other side, with Vortex playing Delhi and Anatan playing Rus, I kind of want to give the, as far as feudal age military presence, I kind of want to give the edge to the Spanish bros right now, just because Delhi and that feudal age map control is something that they're so good at.
Absolutely. A quick observation: we are seeing a lot of roosts because Steam games have a lot more hunt, and hunt is obviously very critical for roost players. You want to get that wheelbarrow early. You can see that it is queued up for Antan. Uh, we've been through this, but I'll quickly go over it again. You with Bruce, you queue up wheelbarrow. If you don't get enough hunt, you cancel it so that you can age up. But on team games, even if you're like super unlucky, you will pretty much almost always get the correct amount of hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. The golden standard for getting that hunt and getting that bounty is anywhere between somewhere around 190 and 200, and it looks like he might have the ability to do that. Finds a deer patch out there in the northern side, closer to his teammate B. Antan going with the Kremlin once again in a very good defensive spot. And you got to be thinking, if you're talking about French playing across from you, Lucifron getting that school of cavalry up with, it looks like, about 5 villagers on this one. So that first early Royal Knight is going to be coming out pretty quickly. You got to make sure that Kremlin is in a good defensive spot right next to that wood line and next to that gold mine as well. If Anatan's thinking about making any kind of gold heavy units, the Kremlin's going to be able to protect him. So I love the placement there. B going up with his own school of cavalry, and Vortex as the Delhi Sultan going up with the Tower of Victory. And it seems like, as far as 2v2 goes, Tower of Victory is a must, Baron.
Oh yeah, it's like there. It's very hard to justify going down with the faith in a 2v2. The sort of all of the quote unquote advantages that you get out of it are slow, and they help when you're in a 1v1. You're snowballing yourself and you're able to pick up, uh, the scholar numbers growing. I would say with the with the healing nerfs, it becomes harder to justify it now. And Tower of Victory just so strong, this perennial advantage that continues playing off much later in the game. Yeah, it's a strong case for it. Both players have obviously queued up knights immediately. What a surprise! For Anatan, there's no way he's ever gonna get a second TC. I, it's all about the wood, and at the moment, I'm curious as to what Anatan is going to choose to macro for once he does drop his first production building. She does have the wood for, so I'm watching for it. We'll see how that goes. On the other hand, Vortex's first 2 buildings were blacksmiths, as in the first game that we watched. So he seems to have that pretty well mapped out. It is a stable.
Yeah, which is interesting actually, as Anatant is going for stable and probably going to be ending up making knights. And there we go. Second production building as the archer range. Going to need somebody on this team to make archers. Going to need somebody to try to combat some of the spearmen. B actually using his first Royal Knight and matriculating all the way to the southern end of the map to try to combat some of the build of Lucifron. Lucifron does have a Royal Knight over here by this gold mine, and will make sure that that knight doesn't get much in the way of damage. That charge actually going into the Royal Knight instead of being able to two-tap a villager. And Lucifron with the presence of mind, Baron, in Feudal Age. We're at the 5th minute going on to the 6th minute of the game. Lucifron has textiles.
That is incredible. I didn't realize that. For a second I was wondering, wait, what happened? Did they nerf French Knights? Am I missing something? But it makes so much sense. Like, now you can't look. B expected to two-tap that villager, and he's got to be confused as to what happened.
Oh, absolutely. And it's very, as somebody who does like playing French, if somebody does get textiles that early, it just makes you want to leave the game altogether. But Vortex adding a little bit of an army composition here. Barrack's going to be able to get some of those spearmen. Scholar getting microed very appropriately from Vortex, and archers will be coming out as well. The Roos does have their own archers, and a lot of the time, I mean, in the early, Season 2 kind of age where Roos was super good and the Golden Gate was able to get that second TC out so quickly, able to make archers at a rather incredible pace. Now, doesn't seem to be so much, but the Kremlin's going to help him out just being that wooden fortress, and Anatan does have wheelbarrow as well. He's going to need a decent amount of archers, especially because he does not have a Tower of Victory. He's going to need a decent amount of archers to try to combat Vortex's army composition and preserve B's knights, as some of them getting pretty injured right now trying to take down some of Lucifron's knights. And like we saw because of textiles, looks like that early school of cavalry that he got as opposed to Lucifron not actually amounting to any kind of worker kills.
Yeah, that's kind of... I mean, the whole way that the Spanish brothers are playing this is really I'm tripping over my words here. Really proactive, because yes, of course, you're making knights and archers, but if Anatan is making both knights and archers, then you could argue that that Vortex's infantry-heavy composition will just win out over the long run, because no one on the other side of the team is making spears. And because Vortex is making spears in any full-on engagement, they're kind of like on top of this.
Right, and I would agree. I mean, just because the amount of spears that he has, and taking a look at Anatan's base, I only see one archery range, one stable, no barracks coming out, and obviously if you're playing as the French, the barracks actually does not exist, so no barracks from B as well. So these spearmen might actually be the catalyst that can turn the tide in a decent war. Vortex trying to get Sacred Site in the middle of the map. The 3D clan does have something to say about it. First Royal Knight, or early Knight, excuse me, from Anatan does go down, does have enough archers to back up. And this is probably the first time in this game where we're seeing all four of them choreographically moving apart. And I do say choreography because I say this analogy over and over again when I'm watching 2v2 games. It really feels like a synchronized swimming act where you have two players on either side just trying to protect other players' units from each other. As you saw, Lucifron trying to get that charge in, trying to make sure the creamsicle Knights of B doesn't get a surround on this archer mass. And although Vortex and Lucifron have to back up, I wouldn't necessarily say that they lost this battle, even though they have a little bit of a map control issue to deal with now because of, like you said, the army composition. Having those spearmen are going to make B and Anatan start to back up. And while all of this has been going on, the Spanish brothers, they got a sacred site all the way up on the top. Vortex didn't need to wall it either. So this middle one did get contested, but that north one is going by the way of Vortex. And are we going to see what we saw essentially on the pit in the first game, one sacred site, and then we're going to start snowballing?
Well, the thing is, Vortex isn't even making more scholars. He's just deciding... Well, okay, does have the gold first color. Oh, he's 4 gold short. He has it now. No, he doesn't queue one up. So his idea is, oh, he does queue it up. Never mind. So his idea is we're gonna play in feudal. I was about to say, and we're gonna sit here and we're gonna just keep trading units against each other. All this while, my sacred site is gonna continue ticking, and until you add spears, we will win any long drawn out engagement. But Anatan doubles down. 4 ranges from him. 4 archery ranges.
And to be honest, I mean, he is getting a lot of these archery ranges, which I appreciate. I just wish he did it a lot sooner, because those spearmen really were the catalyst in the middle of that battle. Now, first sacred site, Anatan does have a scout here on the north side, gonna try to decap it, and looks like he thought a little bit differently. I'm not sure what the scout is doing in terms of mental gymnastics, but is going to try to neutralize that. And we have knights coming in from loose front, trying to get a good charge on B's knights. It looks like overwhelming knight count from loose front, but one of the things, as you are seeing these scouts do, not only are there so many of them, but they have deer carcasses behind them. Pro scouts trying to get some of these deer. They end up dropping that precious cargo because they are trying to escape with their lives. Anatan doing a good job pulling some units in to try to not let that professional scouts happen. And I know from playing the French, food is a big deal. Not going out for some of those Gaia food resources and being susceptible for night raids is really important. So having pro scouts by Lucifron, I actually really like it.
Well, it is. It's obviously so nice when you're playing against another French player, but Vortex has just marched into the base of 3DB and just idled him off everything. And again, this is something really annoying. Oh my goodness, there's so much going on. All right, so B is in the base of Vortex, and Vortex is in the base of B. And they're just both going to trade into each other for a while. I don't know that this is all that good for Vortex actually, because sure, yeah, because his army is all the way on that side, and it's not a mobile army, so it's gonna be hard for it to maneuver all the way back. On the other hand, there isn't a team that can actually reliably deal with this, because all of Anatan's army is forward as well. Meanwhile, the mobile, because the one army that is mobile can't deal with the spears, and how are you going to defend being forced off this gold? It's pretty rough. You have no one on gold and so much idle time to deal with.
Yeah, that's a lot of villager idle time. They had to drop off at the town center just because they weren't safe, and that's 17 villagers worth of idle time. But you're right, in terms of mobility, I think this is more of a overreaction from being Anatan. They're kind of pulling all of their units over here to try to stop a little bit of spearmen and a little bit of archers, where on the flip side, there's a decent amount of Vortex's army still at his base. And just because of how many knights that are here from the 3D clan, they are going to clean this up. I mean, there's not enough spearmen for it, so they'll be able to take care of them. But in terms of map control, they're going to have to move all of this army that I'm circling around all the way over to the other side, but did get a decap on the north sacred site. Looking like for both Anatan and B, I'm going to check their resources. B doing a good job macro-wise, using all of his resources and finally cleaning up that archer mass. Going to be sticking in feudal a little bit longer, but Vortex beat me to the punch. He was going up to castle. Compound of the defender is going to be coming up for him, and now in his archery range, going for some veteran archers. Does have scholars on his stables, going to be able to continuously pump out and efficiently produce some of these Castle Age lances, which come out 17 seconds for each of them.
And why would you make anything else? There are no spears. If there are no spears, you can just make knights to infinity, right? And you just delete whatever is left. Okay, yeah, B and Anatan are just going to... They've committed, they're going to stay in feudal and fight it out, but it's not really going to work if you... once this Lancer Mass builds for Vortex, I think things are going to look pretty rough. Like, one big fight would win them the game here. Of course, the way around this is to try and fight before, try and knock down production buildings, but the army was pulled back, remember, by that very interesting raid by Vortex, and now it's all the way over here, but it feels like a little bit like too little too late.
Yeah, it feels like for the for the 3D clan. They're trying to come in here, and it's kind of put up or shut up time. Some spearmen over here. There are a lot of archers. Lucifron's Knight mass of the Royal Knight variety coming in as a little bit of reinforcements. And look at this, all 4 colors just jumbled up like it's a bag of Skittles. Front lines and back lines together, not being able to actually make out either or, but it looks like B has a decent amount of knights and trying to get an envelopment over here on the southern end of the flank. It doesn't look like there's a lot of spearmen left, and that range mass getting targeted by Anatan. Lucifron and Vortex might need to back up from this one, but the Lancers from Vortex being impressively tanky. Anatan getting some gremlins in here over on the other side, but will end up, just because they're feudal age militia, will end up going down. And this fight dragged on a lot longer than I thought it was going to. I thought it was going to be more of a convincing, just because of the amount of knights that B had. I thought this was going to be a pretty good fight for the 3D clan to take, but it looks like not so much. Those archers, even though, again, they do have that upgrade, not doing a lot of damage against these Royal Knights, and definitely not doing a lot of damage against these Castle Age Lancers, having to back up again. And I think if Vortex, if he's able to get this Lancer count up, it could be game over.
I mean, to be honest, like, think about it. Both players are kind of in the same position, but Vortex is in Castle. He spent all those rests to go in Castle, and he's even, and he still had that Sacred Site ticking in front of him all this while. Like, yeah, it was not super comprehensive, as super comprehensive a victory as you wanted it to be. But think about it. Every knight that dies now is a knight that won't be a bloodline Castle veteran Royal Knight to come back and haunt your teams later on.
Yeah, and they do a good job of causing nightmares. And they do have, as of right now, they do have the Chivalry, and it looks like some scouts from Lucifron trying to get into it. Decent amount of idle time from B's villagers on the north side, trying to take down one of Lucifron's Royal Knights. And now for these players, I want to take a look at 3D Clan in terms of resources. Anatan stockpiling a decent amount. Lucifron not really, or B, excuse me, not really stockpiling a decent amount. I'm kind of waiting for one of the 3D clan to go into Castle Age to really even this out, because the longer Vortex stays in Castle Age and nobody from the other side is, the more advantageous it's going to be for them.
It's really unlucky that Vortex forgot to queue up the things from his compound of the defender. It's really unlucky.
That's an issue. Yeah, for sure. Village Fortresses, if you do not know from some of the patches that happened earlier, Village of the Fortress, instead of being a 5-minute technology, it is a 6-minute, but technically it's an infinite technology for Vortex because he didn't click it.
Ah, yes. Maybe they should add that to Delhi. You know, add technology that allows you to click every technology automatically when you click it. On the other hand, these knights from B are not going to be clicking anything if they're dead and buried on the ground. Only 2 of them going down, but the HP drop is ridiculous, and Royal Institute going up at the same time as well. Whereas B, on the other hand, nowhere, like, the difference in momentum is insane. He's not queuing up knights, but he's still so far away from Castle. And what is the point of being in Castle if you have no knight?
Yeah, that's going to be huge. I mean, 3DB had to keep the knight production up just to keep some sort of front line, but his teammate, Anatan, going to be going up with the Abbey of the Trinity. Hopefully we'll see some Saint's Blessing, and we'll see some Warrior Monks going in, or at least some veteran archers. I mean, he has a massive archer pool right now, 46 archers and 3 knights. So if he's able to get a little bit of an attack boost on these guys, hopefully it will be beneficial. But Vortex, just because, and Lucifron, those Spanish brothers being first ones to Castle Age, meaning they're the first ones to try to get some relics. Scholar trying to take back one of the relics for Vortex. And now that Abbey of the Trinity comes up for Anatan, are you thinking about making any kind of army composition switch for the Rus now that you're in Castle Age?
You obviously make some crossbows, but you have archers already. Just make, like, veteran archer, get the +1 upgrade, and with Saint's Blessing, you will shred through knights and lancers. But I don't know if you're ever going to get there, because the numbers are looking ridiculous for Vortex now, and there are still no spears. So, like, it feels hard. And like to play into this number of knights without a few spears, just spear ball. Of course, and like both players are guaranteed to continue making knights until they see some sort of counter unit. And sure, you can now start pumping crossbows, but Anatan just like doesn't have the eco for it. He only has 9 bills of gold, which is not enough to produce crossbows from 4 ranges.
No, absolutely not. He'll need a little bit more gold, maybe in the form of relics. He might be able to get it, but Castle Age Lancers from Vortex trying to get a surround on this archer mass. There are just way too many archers, and being able to hit instead of 5, being able to hit to 9, you see some of these lancers ending up going down because of it. But the knights of the French players in this game trying to provide a little bit of reinforcements, but there's a big difference in these knights. Loose Front's knights happen to be those pseudo-imperial knights that we talk about so much. Royal Bloodlines coming out, not very tanky Bees knights are compared to Lucifron, and I don't think, based on Royal Institute, yep, Royal Bloodlines for him, about 38 seconds out. So as long as Lucifron and Vortex can try to keep taking these fights, maybe they'll be in a good spot, but there are way too many archers. Like you said, Baron, some crossbows coming in from these guys, and just because the Royal Knights of Lucifron have 310 health, you're going to need more than just archers to kind of carve through them, and you can see them doing that. I feel like just taking this fight, even though it might not be the most beneficial fight, is going to help his teammate Vortex over here get his keep up around this sacred site. Now he's able to back up, use that keep for a little bit of support, because that's going to be the #1 thing that takes down this range mass as of right now. Even though Vortex has a decent amount of keeps, I'm seeing 1 keep here, I'm seeing 2 keeps here. I hate to beat a dead horse, but still no village fortresses.
Yeah, I did notice that. A nice raid going around there for Vortex, just pulling away some military, forcing once again Anatan and B to be on the back foot here. And the sacred site's gonna start ticking eventually. And once they do, it's difficult because the players just get more and more entrenched. The resources allow them to snowball further. Sure, the sacred site is worth less now than it was maybe earlier in the game, where 150 gold is massive per minute, but there's still resources.
Yeah, no, they're obviously, I mean, and that's the big thing about relics. Not necessarily, sometimes it's not necessarily the gold you get, but it's the gold you're denying. It's a huge swing just getting a couple of those relics, and it looks like 2 is in one of the mosques for Vortex. This Abbey of the Trinity from Anatan only got 1 relic in it, but just because of the mobility of the units that we're seeing here, and I'm seeing that a lot in 2v2 games, having the mobility just because the map is that much bigger compared to a 1v1 is so important, and I think that's what makes French as good as they are, being able to pump out knights, 1, with Royal Bloodlines, 2, at a little bit of a discount if you're able to get a keep around some of your production buildings. Just like you alluded to, that southern sacred site taken by Vortex right now. It's 3 sacred sites to 0. Anatan doing a good job using his fortified palisade walls as the roost around, making sure his economy is safe. But the thing is, with these walls, you've kind of boxed yourself in a little bit and not having the map control to try to get some of these sacred sites. But here's a little battle that could get around this north sacred site. We have a lot of ranged mass from Anatan trying to get an encirclement. B's flank over here on the east going to be able to pull those Royal Knights and Delhi Lancers out of that area. And it looks like a lot of crossbowmen from Anatan are going to end up being safe. They do end up sniping this relic. This keep, again, doesn't have a lot of things that are going to help him take out some of these units. Doesn't have things like Springgold upgrade or any of that kind of stuff. So you're able to sit under there for just a little bit, but then they end up having to pull out. Vortex actually going for mangonels with a siege workshop right next to this keep. And I think, Baron, when you get a ranged mass like this, even if you've played against this personally, it seems like even though you build the counter, even though you build horsemen, things like that, just because of how many ranged units there are, it just ends up not being enough and you need a mango.
Yeah, Mangonel, I like to call it the Great Equalizer. It's my favorite unit in the game. I've talked about this for a long time, but Mangonels are just so beautiful as a unit. Like, range, like once it gets to a certain point, it feels kind of impossible to play against. Mangonels really make that feel a lot better. They force the units to, they force you to be able to sort of react. But what a beautiful split there. The micro from Anatan to not only dodge that mangonel shot, but B, to be able to snipe that mangonel. And as a result, look at the number of crossbowmen that are there. There are like 31 crossbowmen in there. It just completely eviscerates that front line now. Those knights, they may be bloodline knights, they may be royal, they may have come from King Charles himself, but one crossbow in their face and they are headed for the hills, as it were.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you saw a lot of Lucifron's knights end up getting shredded, and I would say the majority of Vortex Lancers getting shredded, but that was super good micro by B, getting about 3 knights all the way around, just going to be able to snipe that mangonel. And that's the issue if you don't have things like spears, and you don't have, or at least a decent amount of spears to protect that siege. And you see Vortex is making that change right now. If I highlight this mass and see what we got, now he's got about 14 spears. It's not necessarily trying to take down the knights of the opponent, it's just trying to take down the siege, because the crossbowmen are going to absolutely shred. And it looks like Anatan trying to get out of dodge, trying to get around these fortified palisades. B using all of his knights over here. Anatan sending that wall to the ground, trying to get his ranged mass out of there. Mangonel's going to be a little late to the party, trying to get hits on this ranged mass, and they keep packing, unpacking. They don't know what the hell's going on before they actually finally get their rocks off and end up hitting one crossbowman, end up taking it down. Now this front line, just because of the amount of spearmen are here, going to be able to do a good job against B's knights, but B still being able to flank, take down one of those mangonels, and we'll be able to pop that second one in to firewood over here on the east side. Going to make Vortex and Lucifron back up once again. We're getting a lot of these quote-unquote stalemates, and it feels like just because the 3D clan doesn't have their own siege, they're not able to make much in the way of progress just because there's keeps all in their faces.
Yeah, and you are winning these like sort of skirmishes because you have such a great unit composition right now, on top of the fact that you know, you're able to really stand up and micro against those mangonels. Think about how many mangonel shots Anatan had to dodge. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 at least, but Anatan really didn't lose anywhere near as much as he should have. But you talked about siege, there are 2 trebuchets for Anatan firing away at that keep.
Yeah, and I think if we can, want to get a good look at that keep. There we go. Keep taking down counterweight trebuchets for Anatan. Looks like that keep at about 70% health. They're going to be trying to take that down. I mean, in terms of sacred sites, you got to be thinking that sacred timer still tick, tick, ticking. Sacred site, as far as which one might be the most able to be decapped, all of them have keeps around them. All of them have units and mobile units around to be able to take them. This is going to be super tough for the 3D clan to actually take one of these sacred sites. And I feel like if they do take one of these sacred sites, it's kind of at what cost? It feels like they're going to be throwing away their whole army in order to do so. But we'll see how Vortex making an army composition change, going into veteran spearmen more so than lancers, which is going to really help protect that siege. And I don't think Lucifron needs any help in the way of frontline having those royal knights out. Now for the 3D clan, they're just kind of standing around their trebuchets. You got to remember, from the new patch, these trebuchets don't do as much damage as they used to. Yes, they're a little bit cheaper, but they don't do as much damage, so a lot of these villagers were able to repair this keep pretty easily. Now that Vortex is, I'm assuming, out of stone. Nope, he's got about 900. I'd probably still repair that one, but having a keep over here next to this middle sacred site, and it looks like they're trying to go for that middle sacred site to try to decap B on the south side, trying to get a raid going on. Royal Knights from Lucifron saying that's quite enough, brother. We're going to be able to move those over to the west side. Looks like B just trying to get rid of some of this economy from Lucifron. He's trying to stop this pivotal knight production, because as far as B and Anatan go, I want to take a quick look at military count. Military 34 for B, military 33 for Lucifron. These guys in the way of knight production, none of them are giving.
Not in the slightest. And I like how Vortex is, well, I will say he's dodging the trebuchet shots by building the keep a few tiles over. And yeah, all of this is just, again, more ticking, more timer. And you're correct, like, eventually at some point, sure, you might be able to like pick up a sacred site. What are you going to lose for it? And you've had these sacred sites ticking for so long that the economic advantage, it's really almost what is it, 10 minutes, 150 gold a minute,
Mhm.
450. Yeah, that's like 4,500 gold over to one side. That's a lot of res.
Right, and the most important thing is it's not costing you population to do so. It's not costing you extra villagers to do that. And now I think the 3D clan, they have grown tired of waiting. Mangonel's actually going to be getting hits on some Royal Knights. Lucifron getting his own Royal Knights on the south side. Looks like B was trying to get a charge, but doesn't look like it. There's 3 minutes until Sacred Victory. You heard the bell and you heard the notification on the right side of your screen, so they might be smelling a little bit of desperation coming here from the 3D clan. Lucifron does know that this Bill Sacred Site is trying to get captured as much as possible, does have a keep of his own, does have enlistment incentives, so those knights are going to be pretty cheap. With the gold that they have, it's going to be difficult now. I would say we don't necessarily have a sacred timer because we don't have caster mode, but I'm thinking we're about 2 minutes 30 seconds away. Both of these guys, especially the 3D clan, they got to get pop capped and they got to just try.
Quick update, Village Watch is obviously came through, so his I don't see boiling oil. Oh, it's 3 minutes to go, so there's gonna be no boiling oil, which would be huge in this fight. But honestly, Anatan is one mangonel shot away from being wiped. If you get one good mangonel shot and you lose like 30-40 crossbowmen, it's tough to recover from there. The really interesting part will be if they make their way over to the east and try to snipe stuff on that sacred site here, but it looks like they're going to firmly double down. This is where the big fight's going to happen.
Oh yeah, this is the first 31 minutes kind of hovered into this particular point. Now being Anatan, they're in this choke point in between the two forests. I don't know if that's a little bit of a pathing error or not. Range mass over here on the west side trying to stop that keep from going down, but a lot of these crossbowmen trying to target in on the Royal Knights. Mangonel shots again getting their rocks off, but look at B's flank all the way over here on the south side. He took down both Mangonels. He took down 3 different Springolds over here. As far as siege superiority, it's just land units at this point. Anatan, you see all of these villagers, Baron. He's pulling the boys all the way trying to get a decap of this sacred site. There's a couple keeps over here trying to rain hell. It looks like the front line from B did a good job against Lucifron. Lucifron backing up a little bit. You can see this sacred timer tick, 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 going all the way down. Might be able to get to 0. It looks like a lot of spearmen from Vortex over there on the north side, trying to take down some range mass from Anatan. Might be a little bit of a micro discrepancy, and look at this, the Spanish brothers saying "por qué," and gotta be able to go over there to the east side. That sacred site is gonna end up getting decapped, Baron. B and Anatan did a fantastic job, and now they don't have that timer on them. Maybe they can stabilize a little bit.
Maybe, and on top of that, Anatan has just decided to drop a keep of his own on top of that sacred site, and he dropped it while both keeps were still standing.
That's incredible.
Like all of those villagers that he pulled, okay, he just marched them past and built a keep right behind the other 2 keeps. Boiling oil still not through. These units will be able to comfortable. Whatever is left of this area. Vortex and this front back down to 2 seconds.
Look at this massive raid from B over here. As you can see on the center of your screen, it looks like some sort of quote-unquote landmark snipe. School of Cavalry getting torched down. Look at all these knights. There's 40 pseudo-imperial knights trying to take this down. Anatan is actually bringing his ranged mass as well. It looks like they're trying to get some damage on Lucifron's base, and looks like, wow, this really is a landmark snipe. They're going for their hometown center. Vortex pulling his army. All of his spearmen are trying to come back in this particular area, while on the other side, Lucifron on the front, being in the north in 3DB's base himself. All of these units end up, these villagers have to get some idle time. Look at this. Oh my god. This is a stereotypical base trade coming out from both of these guys. A lot of Anatan and B's units over here. Lucifron trying to get a little bit of a raid here, but all of these Royal Knights, Defender's Advantage really helping them out. All of these Royal Knights at their cheap cost going to be able to try to take them out. Second landmark from Lucifron. That starting town center is now down. I'm not really sure as far as Anatan and B. I don't know why they're trying to back up. Let's get the hell in there, boys. He's got his trebuchets of the counterweight variety. Might be able to take down this Royal Institute as well, as long as back home he ends up being safe. B's economic count right now, 95. Lucifron, I don't know how many villagers he lost, but it's not that many. He's at about 110, and I feel like if these knights from Lucifron don't end up getting cleaned up at due time, B's economy is going to shrivel to the point where this is an all-in.
Oh, and even worse than that, those trebuchets are going to get demolished by some really, really incredible snipes. That's unbelievable. 5 knights alone are just going to make... I've killed 3 trebuchets, and now the entire push is stopped. Like... Oh, Vortex just completely overwhelming. Lucifer and Vortex being able to bring their armies back. Yes, they will eventually be able to clean this up. That is to say, B and Anatan should be able to clean this mass up. But it's just they've lost all the momentum. Without their big siege, the landmark snipe doesn't work anymore. And trebuchets, 3 trebuchets, each one is worth 750 res. That's a lot. Okay. Anatan says, alright, you took my trebs, I'll make rams instead.
and we know Bruce Rams. Anatan isn't exactly Imperial Age yet, so these aren't going to be those super-powered wandering town rams, but Rams will be able to do at least a little bit. And as you're looking at Lucifron, we're looking at his screen. It looks like B trying to get a little bit of a housing crisis. Might be a little bit of the American recession of 2008. Some of these houses going down. Lucifron at 130 pop cap, so he's got to be able to build some houses in order to make some more knights. This could be the time for the 3D clan to actually get in here. It looks like the Spanish brothers doing a good job making sure their armies are pretty tightly controlled with each other. A lot of the spearmen going to be betwixt a lot of these houses in those alleyways, trying to look for knights to try to take down. But you're right, Baron, in terms of siege superiority. Vortex continuing to pump out the Springholes, which is going to be a big success, continuing to have Mangonels, which is going to be a lot of success also. And now that we're taking a check back to the French farmlands, take a look at these serfs or serf corpses over here. 3DB, there is a lot of loss. B doesn't see this at all. Economy at 76 right now. B doesn't have that late game economy. This could spell doom for the 3D clan.
Yeah, and sure, like, his army numbers look ridiculous and they're going to be able to knock down these keeps. But at the end of it all, you still have to produce more military. Like, if this army dies, you need to make more. Lucifron still has 110 villagers. Vortex, maybe only 91 villagers, but that's still quite a lot, given the fact that B is down to 68, and he still hasn't addressed what's happening in his base 10.
No, he's too busy, like, with the knights that he has. He hasn't pulled his villagers. He hasn't done anything. All of these stables, in terms of waypoints, they're going all the way down south. And this really looks like now that B doesn't care about these villagers, now he finally pulls them. And he's probably shaking his head or face-palming right now of how many villagers actually ended up going down. But just because of how many economic units went down for him, this has to be some sort of all-in. I mean, there's no real way for him to continue in this game, because if you take a look at B's resources throughout the duration of that I've had him on the cinematic mode, he's been at anywhere between 200 to 40 gold throughout the duration. He can't make any more knights, Baron. This is the only knight mass that's going to be left for him. So if it goes down, it's going to be game over.
Yeah, again, no, like, without being able to replace an army, if things look bad. Oh wow, Lucifron dropped the Red Palace all the way over on the east side of the map. That's crazy, and he does have the economy to back things up. It doesn't really change anything, like, but you're gonna get Elite Knight now, which is kind of nice. But Bloodlines is obviously all the biggest. Yes. Okay, but my question here is, what are 3D actually accomplishing? Okay, yes, you're going to knock down some raiding happening here, but the Red Palace not going to do anything of the sort. What are you accomplishing here? You're knocking down these keeps, you're knocking this stuff down, but meanwhile, behind all of this, Lucifron is building and is building and is building, and Elite Knight only 20 seconds away. I don't know that there is a way that these rams and this whole journey that we have created has accomplished much. I feel like it would have been better if they just stayed inside Lucifron's base and eradicated whatever was left there.
Yeah, I mean, that obviously would have preserved the longevity of the game. Anatan almost got a little too ballsy and actually queued the Spasskaya Tower, but it's going to end up going for the high armor itself. But look at these knights coming in. Elite Royal Knights came in just at the time this battle started. This is perfection in terms of timing for Lucifron and those Elite Royal Knights, just because of that increased health and the increased damage going to be doing a good job against the pseudo-Imperials. We thought they were Imperial in Castle Age, but now that Lucifron is actually Imperial, that means they are really going to be shown for how weak they are in comparison. The crossbow mass did get hit by a couple of these mangonels, but again, this fight, even though it's going in the way of Lucifron and Vortex, we can notice that because of the Spearman, Anatan finally hitting Imperial Age with the Spatskaya Tower, but the difference is B cannot make this mass up again. Look at population count all the way on the bottom left of your screen. B has the population of 85. It's like he's been reduced back to the 10th minute of the game. We are approaching minute 41. Trying to get a keep up here with this Spatskaya Tower. More economy units end up falling. Military count for him, 15. Military count for Antan, 55. And if you're looking at Lucifron, he has more knights in the queue that you can see over here at a reduced count. He is going to continue to pump these out. Gremlins for Anatan. Again, that oh shit button going to be coming out. Not enough gremlins for him. There's not enough units for B, and the inability to reproduce them. That Night Mask going down means the Spanish brethren end up taking down Anatan and B. And for these guys, Vortex and Lucifron, against the 3D clan, who has been doing very well in the Rising Empires League, that's a clean sweep.